We're giving you a little taste of Montana barley on this episode of We're No Damn Experts. We're talking with the man behind a distillery in the making, and we get some samples of our own. That's coming up.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You wanna get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames, if you wanna go, we can take you there. Through Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
I'm Shannon Newth,
and we're No Damn Experts. We are recording on a Monday.
Monday morning.
And today has been pretty interesting so far. And I'm looking forward to the rest of today, but
Yes.
mostly because we have in studio with us a farmer, an engineer, a beer enthusiast,
Entrepreneur.
and soon to be whiskey maker,
Ooh.
Ryan Pfeifle in the studio with us.
Yay, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. So Shannon, I don't know if I've told you, Ryan and I met years ago at the Mighty Mo Brew Company here in town.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
For the two of you. Yeah.
And he was actually introduced to me by the former Wheat and Barley Committee head, Colin Waters. And we were there for some type of an event. And he's like, hey, come meet this guy who makes malt. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we started talking about malt and beer. So,
Over beers, I'm assuming.
yeah, of course.
Of course.
I
Yes.
mean, it's the only reason to be at the Mo. Well, they have good
They have
pizza.
good pizza too.
Darn
Yeah.
good pizza.
Yes.
Wings too.
Yeah, all that's good.
And Ryan is a farmer from Power, which is a small community just north of here. I would call it a bedroom community to Great Falls.
I've never heard that phrase before.
Nor have I, but it
Well,
sounds good.
now that's what you
it
can
is
start
now.
calling it.
That's
Yeah.
what it is now.
No,
so,
neither
yeah.
of you are like,
It's like
no, we're not jumping on
a
board
suburb,
with that.
if you will, of Great Falls,
go.
except further away.
Yeah, about 25 miles right up the interstate. So
Yeah,
quick
not
and
bad.
easy to get to.
Yeah.
And he's come in here today, and we're going to talk about
With
beer.
props.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about beer and his new effort. So, Ryan, how'd you get into beer? I mean, that's the easy
How does anyone get into beer? So,
I also, your shirt just says beer on it too, that
Montana
you're wearing
beer.
today. With the
the
Montana
shape of
outline.
Montana,
Yeah.
Well, I was a farm kid growing up in Power, of course, and went to university and got an engineering degree.
As you do.
As
Yeah,
I
you
do, I
make
guess.
It sounds so simple. Yeah, this is
Grandpa
what I did.
told
yeah.
me to get an engineering degree over an ag degree, and he was a wise man. So
Okay.
Yeah. So you trusted him?
I trusted him. So, and then engineers tend to get into beer, I guess. I don't know. I know a lot of engineers that got into
It's a
home brewing.
byproduct of the job.
Okay.
So and part of my engineering job allowed me to travel to Europe a lot, whatnot, and Asia and parts
So
unknown.
you're like a
Parts unknown.
world beer
Well,
connoisseur.
I've
Yeah,
spent-
are these beer
I've spent-
trips that you're taking?
Well, they turned into.
Yeah.
Yes.
As they do, yeah.
I just got a interesting taste for different beers from the world and the beer culture.
Yeah.
Beers developed in different regions for specific reasons, like their water supplies or their grain supplies. So it just fascinated me.
Yeah. So you have to go on your own
So
quest.
I
Yes.
got into home brewing. I like building things and whatnot.
Yeah.
So home brewing is a lot of building equipment and
Okay.
bringing everything together.
Wait, so you didn't just go to like Shields and get the beer making kit that comes in a box and
Yeah, after
No?
about 5 minutes of research, I jumped past that step. And
Just like I'm going
Okay.
to do it myself.
yeah, I just started cutting up
Yeah.
old beer kegs and making pots. And
Wow.
well,
But
What kind of engineer are you? Did you have a specialty within engineering?
I was a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And I worked up in the Flathead for a company called Semi-Tool.
Okay.
oh yes.
It's now called something different, but
Okay.
at that time it was Semi-Tool.
Uh-huh.
So
Gotcha.
'cause the company made the machines that made computer chips. So
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
helped out
This
with that.
makes sense that you can
Yeah.
put together a beer keg.
Yeah, because that ain't happening at my house.
Yeah.
and I'm sorry to my brother because he got the kit from Shields because
Okay.
You can make great beer with that.
well, I don't know if
The
he
Mr.
ever
Beer.
did.
This is a different level. Yeah.
Okay, you can make alcohol with that.
Yeah.
You can ferment
You
stuff.
You can drink something
Yes,
that comes
yes.
out of it. Yeah.
Well,
Maybe.
so you started making your own equipment to brew your own beer,
Yes, and
and you took it from like grain to finish.
well, I
didn't you?
had a problem because you can buy malt to homebrew with.
right.
Okay.
When my family had barley, we grew for Coors and Bush,
Yeah.
but there's a middle step called malting, and I couldn't use my family's barley to make in my homebrew.
Oh.
So we had to convert it to malt first. So
Aha.
one
So-
thing led to another, and I started researching how to make malt. So
Yeah. This is probably a really big question. Is that pretty involved to go to add that step? Like, what does that
Or is
take?
it like sourdough
Right.
starter where you just
See, that seems
let
I
it sit
still-
on the table for a while?
it's similar to homebrewing.
Okay.
You can make it as hard as you want or
Okay,
as
yeah.
easy as
Oh,
you want.
okay.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll tell you what malt
Yeah,
is.
please do. Please
Yeah.
educate us on all of this.
Well, to make any alcohol, you need to start with sugar, and
Okay.
and to say make wine, it's pretty easy to get sugar. You just squeeze the grape, you got sugar.
I always think of the I Love Lucy
Yeah,
episode,
there you go. Yeah,
right?
the
Where
stomping.
she's stomping of the grapes. Yeah.
But to get sugar out of a grain is a little trickier.
Okay.
So basically, you wet the grain and let it sprout. It's thinking it's growing out of the ground, so it's creating the sugar it needs to fuel itself out of the ground.
Oh.
But in the malting world, we stop it short, dry it back down. So now the structure inside of the barley kernel is changed, and now it's more of a sugar. And then in later processes, when the brewers or distillers or whiskey makers use that malt, and now the sugar is more readily available. So malting is just a way to get the sugar out of grain.
So I'm going to ask a real stupid question. You're going to have a lot of these today, Ryan.
Fair enough.
So you said you wet it until it is going to sprout, like it would sprout out of the ground. Is there the green thing you always see? Like, oh,
yeah,
this
that's
is
what
the
I was
seed.
picturing. Yeah.
So I said we stop
You
it early.
stop it
we
short?
just before that green thing starts popping out of the end of the
Oh,
kernel. The
okay.
acrospire is what they call it.
The what is it?
Acrospire.
Acrospire.
Of course.
Learning new vocab.
That's
in this
kind of
one.
a
yeah.
indicator of when to stop the malting process.
Okay.
Just as that starts popping out of the end of the
Is that like a manual? Like every day you're just like you put on like
jeweler's
special
loop and looking
glasses,
at
right? And like
acrospires?
looking, is that what you do, or like what is that process?
There's other tests like you rub
Okay.
it in your fingers and
Okay.
it goes from hard balls to like a smooth.
Huh. Okay. But this is real. Like
Sugar.
you're getting in there, whether it's
Yeah.
with your
When you're making
jeweler's
malt,
glass
yes.
or you're feeling it. Okay.
Now, we're not talking about it being in one of them big vats yet because you're not going to be able to see all of that stuff in
You
like a
just-
distiller urn. Like you're going to lay it flat, right?
No, you just
Oh,
reach in, grab a
jeez.
handful, look at the kernels,
Oh.
rub them in your
Okay.
fingers, and
Dump it
Okay.
back in.
then you know what stage it's at.
How often are you checking this?
Well, I mean, once you've made 100 batches of malt, it's
Yeah.
you kind of just go
Early,
by your,
Is
every
it like-
10
go by
minutes.
your watch.
Every
your
couple of
clock.
hours? Every couple
No,
of
no, no.
days?
You know
Like,
it about day 4.
Okay.
At so many hours, it's going to be close.
Okay.
So you go in there and say, maybe needs another 4 hours or 10 hours.
Okay,
or
so it
something.
is fairly
So
precise.
You just wait towards the end of that process.
Okay. Do you
But
have to
you're-
set like a 2 a.m. alarm? Like, gotta go
Right.
check
Well,
my...
you try to schedule your
Yeah.
batches so
So that doesn't happen.
you're not at 2 a.m. getting
Yeah.
up and running the kiln.
So you're day one making some malt. You have done obviously enough research to know that this is going to be that process, or are you checking it every 4 hours?
Well, I mean, the
going,
first few batches of malt in a plastic tub fail miserably or can fail. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a learning process. But
Okay.
you're in your basement and with a plastic tub and wetting grain and then spreading the grain out and
So would you
then
say
drying it in your oven. So
Huh?
and then drying it in your oven's annoying. So then you build another piece of equipment out of an old vent above your stove and
I wish I was this
then you build-
inventive and
I don't know.
capable.
So then you get a heat gun and
I'm
add
just gonna
heat
say
to the.
winters are long. Like
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm guessing you don't
This
have
is
cows.
pre-children. No, I do not have cows. I absolutely do not have cows.
Yeah, that makes
I mean, it
makes a
does
time
keep you
difference.
busy. Like if you're gonna do calving, there's something fun to do during between shifts.
Did you first start out, was it like IPAs that you were making when you were first homebrewing?
Yeah,
I feel like
I've
that's
enjoyed
what-
IPAs, but
okay.
I've always gravitated to the maltier beers.
Yeah.
the
I
brown
just feel
ales
like I
and
had some
ports
friends
and
in
porters and stouts. So.
college, of course, who did some home brewing, and it was they were big IPA fans. But then I feel like every time I hear somebody talk about doing a home brew, it's a pretty hoppy version. So
I've made my double, triple IPAs, hot bombs. I've made those for sure, but I kind of like the German style or the Belgian style beers that are a little more malty. And,
as we move through this podcast, I think people are going to see why I'm going to say this, but I think your passion lies in the malt area. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's a fascinating process.
Okay.
I mean,
because we're going to talk about whiskey, and that's
part of that.
There's some malt in that component as well.
Does the malting what does it smell like?
Ooh.
very
rotten grain.
Yeah, does it smell sweet?
If you leave the
or
batch
is it,
in too long, it does get to smell like rotten grain.
Yeah.
Yes, if you don't aerate it enough. But
Is it like a good sweet smell, or is it just like a musty?
cucumbers,
Oh.
fresh cut cucumbers
Is what it smells like
yeah,
when it's
that's
malting.
kind of the descriptor.
Interesting.
Right before you start kilning, but then when you start kilning, you're adding heat, hot, dry air, and then it smells like really baking bread or bready.
Oh.
So, yeah,
So all of
every
this
step of it
smells
is just
good.
like delightful.
Kind of
yeah.
different scents.
Yeah.
If you walk into the malt house and it doesn't smell nice, then you know there's a problem.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
We've pitched this idea to the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center Foundation. We'll pitch it to you as well. A line of candles would be a great idea.
Yes.
Malt scented candles.
Malt scented candles
At every
yes.
stage.
throughout the process. Mm-hmm.
And then you end at beer, which is great
Right.
smell
I'm
as
in.
well. There we
as
go.
long as it's not old beer,
Part of the
beer
gift
stuck
shop.
to the floor smell. Yeah.
That is not a good
No,
smell.
you know what I'm talking
I
about.
do. Everybody knows what that smell
Yeah.
is. So then you're making malt, you're making some beer. Are you then selling your malt to other people or gifting them your malt? Is there regulations about?
The equipment I built was just 15 pounds of malt. That's enough for like one homebrew batch.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just like the process. And at the same time, there was these small malt houses popping up around the country. So craft malting is
A big thing.
the term.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting to be a bigger and bigger thing. So like everything, you have the big malt houses, and then you have small malt houses, or like breweries, of course, you have the big breweries.
Small breweries.
So, and craft malt houses can do a lot more interesting things, different grains, different processes. So it's kind of fun to play. So I just got into the industry or kind of researched craft malt, and I just decided to go a little bigger. So I built a bigger piece of equipment where I can do 3,000 pounds.
So 3,000, what'd you say? 3,000 pounds of malt makes how many barrels of beer?
I figured this out like 20 times, and now I'm drawing a blank.
Yes.
Come on, engineer brain.
10 pounds of malt makes roughly 50 beers. So
Okay.
Oh, like 50 bottles of beer?
correct.
Oh. We're talking, I was thinking like.
Well, not high alcohol.
Right.
You need more malt if you're going to make more higher alcohol. But
What
just
kind
a
of
standard,
percentage?
like
5%?
a standard 4 or
kind of?
5%
Okay.
beer, you can
Yep.
get from about 10 to 12 pounds of malt.
Okay.
Malt is what makes our alcohol.
Correct.
Oh.
Can you walk us through the beer making process?
Sure. And it's the first half is
Like how
same
do we
for
get
single
the
malt
beer?
whiskey. So then the brewery will take in the malt.
Okay.
And so you can take the same barley and make 20 different types of malt, depending on how you run it through the malt house and process it. So that's where you'll get a lot of your beer flavors. The brewer will say, I'll take some of this malt, I'll take some of that malt, I'll take some of this roasted malt, and they build their recipe that way. And of course, hops too. And so they'll take their malt recipe, whatever the 5 different malts they pick, they'll grind them up into a really coarse like flour, and then they'll put it in what they call their mash tun. In their mash tun, they add water at a specific temperature, around 150 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, enzymes that were created in the malting process get activated.
Okay.
Those enzymes finish.
From the hot water.
Yes, the
Okay.
hot water activates enzymes.
Okay.
And the enzymes finish chomping up all the starches into sugar. So you'll when you put it in there, it doesn't taste that sweet. The ground up malt and the water mix it up thoroughly, after 15, 20 minutes, it tastes super sweet. It's
So
fascinating.
you've taste tested
Oh,
at
of
every
course, yeah.
step of this process? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you got to make
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
So
You
take
want
that
it
malt,
to come
put
out
a
like a
little
loaf of bread.
take that sweet malt, put a little bourbon
Uh-huh.
in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. You have your own. This is another product for you down the road. Yeah.
So then you drain off that liquid from the mash then, and then you have a sweet liquid.
Okay.
And in a brewing world, then you take that sweet liquid, add hops, and boil it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after it's done boiling, you cool it down and add yeast. So then the yeast eat the sugars that you created. They make ethanol, alcohol, and carbon dioxide. So that's why the carbon dioxide in the beer, the fizzy beer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in brewing world, you got to package it and keg it and all that one.
It's a whole science experiment.
We create sugars, and then we add yeast to eliminate sugars.
Well, the beauty of yeast is this little microorganism that will take those sugars and make what we all want, I guess, is the ethanol. And they make a lot of flavors too. So the brewers have such a palette of things. They can use different malts, different water, different hops, different yeast. I mean, there's yeast from all over the world that will create different flavors in your beer. So it's so artful because you can take so many things and make your own spin on it.
When do you put the orange peels in? Because, I mean, there is this
So the
weird
white beers.
process of where they start putting in fruits and all this other
clove
stuff.
flavors.
Yeah, that's like a Belgian white, like we
Yeah.
all know from Belt, but not. That's a traditional Belgian white beer, so Belgian wheat beer.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't made. I presume they put it in the boil,
Okay.
but it could be in the ferment. I can't say I've researched that particular beer much.
Or just in the
But it's
vat
orange
or
peel.
whatever. They just throw in oranges.
It's orange peel
Yeah.
and coriander is the
Okay.
traditional seasonings
Yeah.
for
I mean,
Belgian
they're
white beer.
adding random stuff in there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
Which
art,
is
man.
fine.
You can
do whatever you
You
want.
can make all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah.
So you said you've traveled the world in various spots. I want to talk about Germany specifically. What did you learn from your Germany experience in terms of like the beer brewing process? Because there's a long-standing history. Like Germans are real good at their beer. There's a long-standing history of brewing beer in
The German
Germany.
style.
Yeah, tell me about your Germany excursions and kind of what you learned from that.
Germans make perfect beer.
Yes.
They've had so many years. It's so clean, so
Yes.
crisp. Most German breweries follow what they'll call the Reinholzgebot. It's a German
Of
purity law
course.
from 1516 or something.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. So that law says they can only use malt, hops, yeast, and water. That's
Okay.
no other ingredients.
No
They have
barley.
to be pure German.
Uh-huh.
And I'm German heritage.
Yeah, right.
My
I have
family.
that in me too.
And they just make it perfect. They just every time consistent perfection.
Yeah.
And the best possible beer you can make from this set of ingredients, they find a way to suss that out.
Yeah.
So
Did you have a favorite from your? Is it hard to say?
yeah,
Do you have a favorite? from
whatever
somewhere?
one is in my hand.
Yeah, right.
Is my favorite. So, I mean, every German, they tend to do lagers more than ales
Yeah.
in Germany, but there are ales, of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can't even answer
Yeah.
that. Which is my favorite?
I had one so I got to go to Germany 8 years ago or so. And my very favorite one, and I still say it's my favorite, I don't know if it's just the experience being there added to it, but it was in a little town called Wittenberg, and it was it was a Hefeweizen, but it was done in honor of Catherine von Bora, who was Martin Luther's wife.
Okay.
Martin Luther,
Oh, yeah.
of the Reformation, Martin Luther.
I'm a Luther.
So from the
The
so
church
from,
guy.
Yeah. So from that time frame, but I thought it was so fascinating. Catherine von Bora, his wife, was like this master brewer. Like they
fantastic.
drank so much beer, and Catherine von Bora was this master brewer. And so the whole history in this little town where Martin Luther, there was he nailed the 95 Theses, all of that for Lutherans out there, church history. But it was just so interesting because the beer brewing process was such a part of that time frame because the water wasn't necessarily great. So they did that process.
They drank beer for a different reason
Yes,
than we
and
drink
we
beer.
drink beer. I mean, they still enjoyed it, I'm sure, but there were more health reasons at the time. But anyway, so it was this little brewery.
We need to
in
go
this
back to
tiny
that
town of-
lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
Water's
Be
not
very
safe. Must
dehydrated,
drink
but
beer.
yeah. Anyway, but has been my favorite beer ever. Was this little town of Wittenberg in Germany, named for Catherine von Bora, Martin Luther's wife. That one was my favorite. But I love the Hefeweizens there.
And I have no doubt the beer is amazing.
Yeah.
But the experience, that's what I love
yeah.
about traveling for beer. The story,
Totally.
the experience, the scenery, it just all adds to it. And that's the beauty of beer and whiskey.
And my favorite ones I was told was it was basically like drinking a loaf of bread every glass. And I was like, well, we're just going to throw that out the window. When in Germany, we'll just drink multiple loaves of bread every day.
So in this beer journey you've had, you've also done some really unique partnerships with various breweries here.
Yes, Mighty Moe's use my malt, and Black Eagles use my malt.
But you did like special micro stuff with Golden Triangle Brewery, which is no longer in our area, but is brewing.
Yeah, Brandon and Stacia became very good friends. And like I mentioned earlier, the small malt houses can do interesting things like big ones can't. So Brandon brought me some wheat and some barley from Fort Benton, from farmers in Fort Benton. And on my scale, I was able to malt that and then return it back to him. So then on his beer menu, he actually listed the farmer's name. So
Oh, cool.
created that hyper connection to their community. So
I
just love doing that stuff.
It would even say malt by Farm Power.
Malt
yeah.
and raised by...
Nice.
Sorry, Fort Benton people.
whoever.
I forgot the names at the moment. But
It doesn't matter.
But it was personalized.
But yeah,
yes.
they had the farmer's name right on the menu. And then I went to one of the releases and they had the farmer there. So
Yeah.
that's a
That's
really
really
cool way
neat.
to connect to your local community.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people might not realize, too, the connection that, I mean, we really are the hub for brewing for beers. I mean, there's so many that go out to, like, Molson Coors. You mentioned that. Yeah.
We still grow for Coors.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's... I can't malt it all.
Right. Dang it.
One day
Yeah, that's right.
you'll be
Switch
your
all
own
to malting.
provider.
Yeah.
But the true story, we've got small maltsters like Ryan, and then we've got the big one, Malt Europe, that makes a lot of malt at one time. But they also supply the malt for our brewers locally as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They make a great product, great malt. So.
I was so happy this weekend. I took a trip to visit my family, and we stopped in Havre at my favorite place to grab some quick food, Parker's Barbecue Pit.
Okay.
And on tap, Golden Triangle Brewing
Oh.
Really?
with their new, well, I shouldn't say new, their honey kolsch was on tap there.
Ooh.
So let me tell you, folks.
That's good.
That Golden Triangle beer, which has got its roots here, it's a great thing to drink. And now this is a unique situation just because the owners of both the brewery and this barbecue place are friends. And so you're getting that insider trading situation happening
Brandon
there.
makes
So
a great
works.
beer.
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, oh, that is some good beer. Just to be able to have Golden Triangle again in the Golden Triangle was pretty awesome. Yeah. That's just what I
that
have
just
to
sounds
say.
good right now.
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah.
Let's stop talking about that.
food and beer right now. Yeah.
So then your obsession with malt has now led you to another new endeavor. So what you got up your
What's
sleeve?
cooking? Yeah.
Well, let me start with a step back a little bit. I've long thought, I'm a farmer and I'm very privileged to farm some land around Power.
Yeah.
But our small communities keep getting smaller and smaller. And let me read a list here.
Yeah.
Ball,
Ooh.
Beck, Brumwell, Clark, Dahlman, Fitzgerald, Helcrow, Keel, Prater, Timmerman, Tenius. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you guys.
They sounded like some last names to me.
Yeah.
Those are all farms I farm now.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm very incredibly privileged to be the caretaker of
Yeah.
that land right now. Some of it we
That's
own,
a
some
lot
of it
of
we rent.
places.
That's a lot of land.
But do you know what I'd rather have? All
All
those
those
families
families
back
back.
in our small
Yeah.
communities. So
And what's
I just kind of have a feeling we could both get on the soapbox of the slow death of the small town.
correct.
Which is a huge issue, and it's far-reaching.
Yeah.
We should probably do an entire.
that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Oh, but it is a big deal.
And reversing that completely is going to be impossible. But if we can find a way for a family to survive on 300 acres instead of 30,000 acres or
Yeah.
10,000 acres,
Right.
that's how we reverse that trend. And so
you have a
that's been in the
plan
back
for
of my
that?
mind since the day I come back. And the way a value-added ag is the way you do that.
Okay.
So you could easily live on 300 acres again if you're not selling that wheat or that barley to the bigger commodities. If you take that wheat and barley and make a very high quality product, you can easily live on 300 acres again. So
Like a loaf of bread,
bread,
pasta,
beer, hummus.
Yep.
I'm waiting for
Aha,
someone
yes,
in this area.
yes.
I think my bandwidth's a little short right now, but I would love someone to do hummus. You can grow chickpeas and sesame
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah, that's a great
Celtic
idea.
Cowboy used to have chickpeas delivered from Roar Farms, and then they used to make hummus right there at
Yeah,
Celtic
and
Cowboy.
it's,
The fresh, it was so good.
Yeah. So,
Yum.
so I mean, you start with what we grow here: lentils,
Yeah.
chickpeas, wheat, barley, durum, and figure out a wonderful product.
Yeah.
And there's endless possibilities. So.
Yeah. And there's a lot of folks that have that kind of thought process. We've got Courtney and Jacob Cowgill.
Yep, they're friends.
They're doing
Blue Truck bread. It's
Yep.
just it's in my
yeah.
kitchen
All
every
the
morning.
time.
I
Yes,
love that bread.
That is
Yeah.
good stuff.
And so, you're finding more and more trying to figure out how to add more value to their land to get people more connected with their food, with their products, understand more of that process, but then also a little bit more sustainable and survivable long
Absolutely.
term.
Yeah.
So,
And is that because you use that the phrase that's becoming more and more common, that value added
Yes.
ag, and that's kind of what we're talking about. But can you explain a little bit more for people what kind of that term, what that means?
Yeah. I guess you just take the commodities that we produce here and decommoditize them.
Okay.
so instead of selling wheat, you're
Right.
going to sell.
Yeah, I mean, right, most of our wheat ends up on a train, goes
Yeah.
to Portland, ends up
Yeah.
on a boat, and it's all sold bulk on the commodities markets and whatnot. But we could turn that wheat into bread or pasta here, and instead of shipping wheat, we could ship bread or pasta.
Yep.
And we do some of that, Pasta
Right.
Montana here in Great Falls makes a great product too. But I like to see it on the smaller. Let's have families building this
Yeah.
stuff and
Yeah.
selling this stuff. So
Bartering for what the other family has.
I will barter
Trade you bread for
bread
Yeah.
for whiskey. We can do that.
Yeah.
I love that life. I mean, honestly, bread and whiskey and then a beer.
Yeah.
What else
You're
do you
set.
need?
Got all the
Absolutely.
carbs you could ever
Gotta
want.
find someone with a milk cow. Make me some
there
butter.
you go. Then you're set. That's all you need. Yeah.
But yeah, through me thinking about value added and what fits our area. Well, I lived in Scotland for a year or two through my engineering journey. So
Where
my
in Scotland?
heart of Edinburgh, right on the Royal Mile.
Oh,
So
very cool. Like in an apartment there?
yeah, a flat.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. A flat.
Use
yes.
the right words.
Yes, I'm sorry.
18
We-
Robertson's Close. If
Oh,
anyone wants to
hey.
look it up. So.
My Jason, my husband
Yes,
from
yes.
Wheat Bar, we went. He's Scotsman, and we went on this journey through Scotland when we were dating, which that was a whole other journey, but whole other story to that. But we did, went all around, and we went to the Glengowan
Okay.
distillery there in Scotland, but also walked up and down the Royal Mile. This was before we knew you, though, so I can't. But I'm sure we passed by it at some point.
I would have waved.
Yeah.
So.
So
Yeah.
you spent a year in Scotland.
Yes, my wife got her master's degree from the University of Edinburgh. So,
Oh.
and I continued to
How
engineer
cool.
remotely and work for my company through Europe.
That's neat. Wow. Okay, so
I got
the Scots like their alcohol.
Yeah, and they're single malt. Single malt's right up my alley.
There you
So-
go.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I was the ignorant American, I must admit,
Sure.
when I was there, and
Yeah.
bellied up to the bar and said, "Give me a Scotch." And I
They're
was
like,
"Young man, we don't call it Scotch here. It's just whiskey."
We invented it,
Yeah,
so
so
we just say
call it
yeah.
whiskey. It's only you Americans that call it Scotch, but nonetheless, I mean, that percolated in the back of my brain. Value added percolated in the back of my brain, and then I wish I remembered the year 2014, 2015, when I was trying to make more malt and wanted to make sure I made high quality malt. I took a malting class in Winnipeg, Canada,
oh,
and met a nice lady from Patagonia, Argentina.
Oh,
And-
cool.
okay.
Her and her husband had been making single malt whiskey for many years, and they were trying to go the other way and wanted to bring it closer to them, and so they were starting to farm and starting to learn how to make malt.
Oh,
So they were already making the whiskey
Okay.
and wanted to go backwards and make the malt. I was already making the malt and wanted something to go the other way.
Yeah. Sounds like a good
And so we
kind of
met in the middle,
Yeah.
and we became friends. They visited my facility. I visited them. And through that friendship, I'm opening a whiskey distillery, a single malt whiskey distillery in Power.
wow.
Which is so exciting.
So
This is so cool.
With your grain,
correct.
and their expertise on how to make
Yeah,
it?
I mean,
Or
they
have
own
you
their distillery.
already
I own my
learned?
distillery, but we're doing kind of a marketing partnership. We're going to
Okay.
bring the marketing together, the branding together.
Very cool.
We'll be able to do cool things. Maybe ship malt down there, and they'll make it. So we'll start with the same malt, but we'll see how the different climates make a different whiskey, and then you can bring
Yeah.
the whiskeys back together.
Yeah.
There's infinite
Taste them.
possibilities to.
Yeah. Well, and you're really comparing notes and learning from
Yeah,
the different
yeah.
processes.
So-
And yeah.
So I don't know if anyone's done that kind of a northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere
Yeah.
partnership, and I'm really excited to see what
You know
evolves
what?
out of
On
that.
this podcast, you can just claim you're the first one to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'm
But
the first.
But and single malt in the whiskey world is kind of a unique
So
whiskey.
explain
Yeah.
that then. What, because discerning palates probably have a better idea, but I'm not really a
Yeah.
discerning palate. So what is a single malt and what's the process there?
Well, whiskey is a general term for a spirit made from grain.
Okay.
Tequila is made from agave, rum is made from molasses. So spirit made from grain, but within that, there's lots of ways to make a spirit from grain. And we all know bourbon, of course. Bourbon has to be mostly corn and aged in a new oak barrel, typically. So there's kind of rules and categories. In the single malt world, it's 100% malted barley.
Okay.
And that's the Scots, for the most part, do that model. So
Okay.
they're, of course, the most well-known single malt producers in the world, but it doesn't mean you have to make it in Scotland. It only
You can make it in Montana.
you can make it anywhere. You just
Yeah,
can't call it
exactly.
Scotch.
Yeah.
So, and there is a new category coming from the feds in the
Oh.
United States called American single malt. So
Oh.
it has some
Few-
rules kind of similar to Scotch rules in Scotland. Has to be made within the borders of America. Has to be 100% malted barley. Has to be aged for a minimum of 3 years in oak barrels. There's some other rules, but
So this is going to be a long-term process.
yeah.
I was going to ask the aging process because, I mean, it's
Minimum of 3
multiple.
years.
Yeah, if not, I mean, a lot of the bottles on the shelves are 10, 12, 15 years.
yeah. So yeah, my kids will make a great
This is-
product. So.
This is really playing the long
Yeah.
game.
Now,
Yeah.
they got to be interested, right? Or
Yeah.
are they going to go and...
Yeah, they're 10 and 13. So.
Yeah, we need to determine now, though. We've got some education
Yeah.
components and
Yeah.
tracks that we're looking at, some tours they're going to have to do
Yeah.
so that they're a little more aware when they show back up. With 5 years later, we finally have a product to sell.
Yeah.
So Scotland is perfect for aging things for a long time. They're humid and they have a fairly moderate temperature. Us, not so much.
Yeah. We have a little more variety in that. Yeah.
So the aging and the time and the years, it's just going to be experimentation to see how you can make the best single malt product in central Montana.
Ryan, though, you're aging this for so long, you screw something up. You're like 3
set
years behind.
behind,
Like,
yeah.
I guess
Well, I'd
another
like to think
3
you
years
don't mess up
later.
every single batch.
Right.
Well, good Lord.
If one barrel goes
multiple,
bad,
yeah.
I mean, that's okay, I guess.
Yeah. It's a lot. That's a big process.
Well, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're to make a widget and it takes you 3 years to make a widget to sell.
Yeah.
It's an investment.
Well, hopefully you would not just like make one and be done for 3. You're like making.
Making it
You're
constantly
continually
through,
making
so-
batches. So
I mean, I
it
hope
wouldn't
we
be
can do
another
a
3 years.
I hope we can do a 10-year and a 15-year
Yeah.
and a 20-year, but we'll see what our climate
Allows?
allows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do different things by transferring barrels and whatnot.
Could you imagine 20 years? You're aging something for 20 years, then you uncork it and you're like, oh, that's not edible at all.
Yeah, you're like, oh boy, that did
Son
not
of a
go-
gun.
Yeah. Goes the
What's
last
really waiting
2
for
decades.
this?
Yeah.
I mean, do you get
Yeah.
an opportunity to check and go, think like year 10, things started to go badly and you still
Yeah.
let it go till year 20?
Yeah,
Like,
you'll taste it along the way.
okay,
Yeah, okay.
Keep track of things a
Yeah.
little bit.
So maybe you corked it and shoved it in
Right,
the
just
back of a room and
Forget
best
about
of
it.
luck.
Yeah. Do you make your own casts then, or where do you get your?
We're
Wooden
in the
materials for
process
that.
of researching
Okay.
that right now. So interesting fact that most people don't know, almost all Scotch is put in bourbon barrels. Like I said earlier, bourbon barrels can only be used one time to be called bourbon. So what do the bourbon makers do with those barrels? They ship
Sell
them all to
them to-
Scotland. So that's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
That partnership is just fascinating to
Yeah,
me. How
it is.
bourbon and the bourbon flavor, a lot of the flavors have been extracted out of that barrel, the charred oak, and that goes into the bourbon. So now it's perfect for Scotch makers to use, because the Scotch is certainly a different flavor, a little more mild flavor. And so we'll continue that trend or relationship, I guess you could say, and mostly ex-bourbon casks.
Okay.
But you can do interesting things too. You can get wine casks, sherry casks.
Yeah.
There's even people taking a bourbon cask and then a brewer will put a beer in it. And then once the beer's out of that, now you bring it over and put single malt in it.
Ooh, interesting.
And then when you make your different additions of single malt, you'll say, I want some of this cask, some of this cask, some of this cask. And you'll do your blends to make your additions.
Jason's really into Caribbean rum casks.
Okay.
Like he loves that.
Yep, you can do rum casks.
Yeah,
tequila
it's the
cask.
whiskey from
there's a
cask.
Scotch, I can't remember the name of it, but it was tequila cask finished.
Oh.
Which is
Sounds spicy.
Yeah, the Scots are branching out too. So.
They're getting crazy.
Uh-huh.
No more purity standards over there. So will you then also create bourbon since you can control that entire process, or just focus on?
Part of my goal is back to that value added.
Yeah.
What can we make with what we grow here? The best possible product. And well, frankly, we don't grow corn here.
Yeah.
So single malt. We make top-notch barley in central Montana. And
that is our better product.
That is,
no, our plan is to make 100% single malt,
Okay.
be a single malt distillery, only single malt.
So then let me call back to the way malting works. You said only single malt, so it's just going to be single malt and water?
Yeah, just our malted bar. We'll grow the grain, we'll malt it,
And
we'll
then
use that malt in the whiskey making process.
Okay.
And distill it, of course.
So this is all going to be done in power.
Correct.
Do you have a date in mind of when
2 years ago.
of when the reality might be that the casks are done and everyone's ready to drink single malt?
Well, we're going to start distilling this fall. Our building and our stills are in place.
Yay.
Okay, so we got gears in motion.
Yeah.
We're going to follow the rule, minimum of 3 years. So a minimum of 3 years.
Yeah.
Of course, at 3 years, we'll taste it. Feel if we have a quality enough product to warrant, or if it needs a little more age.
Okay.
So 3 to 5 years from now.
Oh, makes sense. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Are
you going to do tours in the meantime?
Yeah, you should. Or at least for us.
We've been giving quite a few tours already, to be honest.
Okay.
But there will be a tasting room, but that won't get built out for a few years. Right now, we're focusing on getting the stills up and operational. So we probably won't open a pure tour thing until we actually have a product to provide to customers. It's a little weird saying, hey, we're making this great product.
You want them to taste it while they're walking around. Yeah.
They can always come back next year, check the progress. They can be part of that. And then when there's finally a product, they'll be like, I've been here for the whole thing. I've been a part of this.
So I don't think we'll do like an official tour schedule until the tasting room's open. But that said, if anyone wants to come see what we're doing, look me
there's
up,
an option.
send me an email.
They can help you harvest.
He'll take all hands on deck. Yeah.
We love to show off what we're doing. So.
Do you have a name for your distillery? Okay.
In spirit of kind of linking with our friends down in Argentina, their distillery is La Alazana. There were some trademark issues using that name up here. So Farm Alazana is the name we have.
Alazana.
And,
okay. What does Alazana mean?
Chestnut-colored horse.
Okay.
It's a color, I guess, in Spanish.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
German heritage, bear with me. My Spanish isn't the best.
I know a little Spanish. That wasn't one of them. That wasn't one of the words. But Farm Alazana, is it like Alizna?
A-L-A-Z. Great. Now you're putting me on the spot.
This is now turned into the script spelling bee.
A-L-A-Z-A-N-A.
What was it?
A-L-A-Z-A-N-A.
Okay. Nice.
If I had a bell, I'd ring it.
So my malting company's Farm Power Malt. So we kind of took the farm from Farm Power Malt and took the Alazana.
Yeah.
I think it'll help. Yeah. We wanted to connect. Not many distilleries start from the ground and grow their own grains, make their own malt. So we really wanted to bring that farm connection into the name. So.
Do you have a name for the first drink, the whiskey that you're working on?
We're no damn experts.
Oh, perfect. Yes, we need.
We'll have custom.
See, we can partner with that. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, honestly, It's probably the best thing you could do for your first bottle. It's like, best of luck. We're no damn experts.
Yeah, that's true. You're really opening the door for a lot of wiggle room on that.
Yeah.
It's very common just to kind of call your first one like your classic.
Okay.
This is your classic. This is your staple product. You know, and then as age comes on, you'll do your 5-year edition, your 10-year edition, and then you'll do some special editions. Say we do mix some tequila barrels in the mix or something. We'll do special editions. That will have different names.
We could have a We're No Damn Experts special edition.
Yeah,
How
there you go.
That?
So.
Well, like our 1000th episode would probably line up with
that's true. The release.
There you go.
I like
our
it.
500th episode I'm making. 1000 was too much. I forgot. We just feels like we've been doing this for long.
140 some odd episodes in now.
Yeah.
You talked about how much you like beer. Do you like whiskey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
do you
I've
like to
certainly
drink whiskey? Okay.
Well, living in Scotland,
yeah,
I had that first little inkling, and that experience in the pub where I was the ignorant American.
And you grew.
And whenever I get called ignorant,
like that.
Well, no, I mean I was ignorant. I am
quick to learn.
The truth is the truth. I kind of started researching it more and more and digging into it and the culture there in Scotland and how they make it. So I tried more scotches than I can think of, to be honest, and enjoy them very much. Yes.
We've got interesting distilleries around Montana. We don't have our own yet in Great Falls.
No. We're waiting on it.
And I would yell, but I'm not going to because it's not going to do anybody any good.
If you're going to, can you tell me so I can turn your mic down?
That's fine. I'll keep my composure. Okay. But I look forward to the day we've got tons of distilleries within our area that are making great craft spirits.
Yeah. Why, we say, and this is a true claim, that we have some of the best, wheat, barley, beer, water in the world. But what is it that makes ours, the stuff that comes up from your land, like some of the best in the world?
While it's a curse, it's also a blessing. It's how dry we are.
Okay.
Oh.
In areas where it's a lot wetter and more humid, you have more disease pressure, more bug pressure, and the barley will be moldy.
Okay, yeah.
Can have mold on the surface. It's still usable, but it looks browner and stuff. Our barley is known in the brewing world for its bright, crisp color, and it makes a nice, crisp Coors Light.
Yeah.
So that's like I said, it's a curse because it is a little difficult to grow barley with so little water. But the flip side is how bright, clean, crisp our barley is. So.
And you've just finished harvest.
Correct.
So what are you going to do with your time now? Plant?
Plumb. Wire outlets.
Do engineering things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, we have to put in our winter wheat crop here in a couple of weeks.
So
but I've been working at the distillery.
Yeah.
There we go.
At Farm Alazana.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I'm just really looking forward to becoming a single malt girl.
Yeah.
Learning some stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
drinking some stuff.
Single malt is such the perfect fit for rural Montana. I mean, as much as I love beer needs to be drank fresh and kept cold.
Yeah.
And we just don't have that many people in
Yeah.
central Montana
True.
to keep it fresh and cold. So I really, and it kind of follows, Scotland has all the small communities out in the rural areas, and a lot of them have a distillery that the community is based around, and I just love that model. And I hope there's a dozen single malt distilleries around the Golden Triangle someday. And
you're not trying to be in this alone.
No. I want our small communities to thrive and prosper, and I think beer, of course, too, can work, and bread and hummus and everything else we've talked about. But single malt is a very, very good fit for this area. So,
can you kind of stepping back, like broader picture, to help people who are visiting here who maybe don't know anything about farming and things like that? Can you just kind of talk about what the life of a farmer, and then what it means to have the fact that you just said you just finished harvest, talk about what that means, and then that you're going to do winter wheat. Like what does that mean? What are people looking at? What do those terms mean? Just help us understand Montana farming.
We live in a unique area here, being so dry and hot in, say, July and August. So winter wheat's a very good fit for this area. because we plant it in the fall.
Okay.
So I'll be planting it here in a couple weeks or so. It starts to grow a little bit in the fall and then goes dormant and comes up very early in the spring.
Okay.
And being it comes up very early, it's nearly finished by the time our hot season rolls in July and August. So winter wheat's a very big crop in this area, but barley also is a quick growing crop. So even though sometimes the fields are a little muddy, we have to wait a little longer to get the barley in. The winter wheat's already growing and happy. The barley grows quite quickly. And then of course the hot, dry July, August is, as long as we have enough water stored in that ground, which is an if in this area, the barley finishes out in that hot, dry weather, and that keeps our disease away and whatnot.
And the late August for you at least is kind of your typical harvesting time?
Yeah, more early August and
Early
even
August,
late July, depending on the season. So this year we were harvesting, I think July 22nd or something is when we started. So.
And how big of an undertaking is harvest?
It's a logistical nightmare. The right piece of equipment in the right place at the right time with the right people, and where to put it, and send this truck to this bin or send that truck to that elevator. So yeah, it's just a big logistical challenge.
Yeah. If people are driving along the highway, coming in down from the north, they pass the power area, see you out there. What will they see when you're harvesting?
Well,
you sitting out there on a huge
personally?
Piece of machinery,
cussing and hitting, and
while I would love to be sitting in the nice air conditioned combine, I'm kind of the director.
Okay.
So
do you have the things like the airport people have? Yeah.
Yep. I have the flags and the light. No. So no, I just kind of keep everything moving.
Yeah.
Send this here, send that there, set up this grain bin. So if there's a truck that needs moving, I move the truck. We're always thinking about the next field, finish this one. So moving equipment to the next field to be ready.
Yeah.
Big combines.
Yeah.
Down.
So we always,
trucks.
Fire of course is a huge concern.
Yes,
So we're always bringing our water truck and we want our plow or disc nearby if there's a fire to help knock the fire down. So.
Wow.
And that's also the time of year when we really want and need rain, but the harvest, you guys would hold off on it right there because that makes it challenging.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Do you have other questions about farming? Because this isn't a life you grew up on.
Well, no. And I mean, I know some about it, but I'm also thinking about these are things that when you're driving down the road, if you're not used to seeing them, you want to understand what's going on. And even for those of us who do live here, maybe didn't grow up, and you become accustomed to seeing it. But then when you stop or somebody asks you a question about it, you're like, oh, actually, I don't know what's happening. I'm just used to seeing it happening over there. So, well, we were talking about too, we get this question a lot, like the yellow. People see yellow in fields.
Yep.
That's canola, correct?
Typically, yeah.
Okay.
There's another crop called camelina that flowers yellow, but they're a little bit smaller. But yeah, the bright, vibrant yellow field is typically a canola field.
Do you rotate?
Could be a mustard field too, but mostly.
Oh, yeah. Do you rotate lentils at all on your?
We've done lentils before, yeah. It's not in our current rotation because they can be a challenge to harvest and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to simplify. One year I had 7 crops.
Okay. It's a lot happening. Yeah.
That's a lot of variety.
That's a lot to.
It was just a challenge. So I've kind of simplified the farming life to help with this whiskey project.
Yeah.
So we're just doing wheat and barley and just winter wheat, barley, and camelina right now. So.
Okay.
There's a organic lentil farmer, Timeless Seeds, also from the Conrad area north of here. Jeremiah Johnson Brewing Company made a lentil beer with some of those lentils.
Yep. Years
Did
ago.
you try it?
If it's the one I think about, yeah.
Yeah.
And they use it was a quick little project, and they used some of
just
my malts.
Just a small.
What did it taste like?
Lentils?
Besides clearly not either one of your favorites.
It was a unique experiment, and I think it was something fun to do.
It was super earthy, if I remember right.
I don't think it's gonna go mainstream.
Yeah.
And they just kind of ground up some lentils, and it was more of a flavoring addition than say actually getting sugars out of the lentils.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I don't know if you could you even get sugars out of it?
I haven't tried it, but you can malt lentils. You can malt anything. So.
Well, there you go.
So yeah.
Challenge accepted. Malt anything. We'll send you random stuff to try malting.
I can't wait for you to make a lentil single malt and see how that goes.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with
That
barley.
would be very unique.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking diversification for your
Yeah.
cropland would be fun.
I'll put that on the list.
Okay. Things never to do.
20 years down the road. Yeah.
Remember that time that crazy woman said we should make a single malt lentil? Yeah, what do you think? Your kids will go, no, Dad,
No,
that's still a
not
bad
so much.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
having just a great time with us. Folks, you don't know this, but there is sample whiskey bottles here in this building.
Yes, I know. I was like, we haven't brought up the props yet.
yeah, nope, and we're not going to on air. Because that's really something for us
Yeah.
to really see.
I mean,
and then
we've had beer on air before, but
right. But the other fun part of that is because this is going to take such a long time for you to develop, you get to come back and give us progress
Yes.
updates.
Absolutely.
yeah, we'd love to hear that and have a tour sometime.
Yeah. Shannon probably more than me. I just want to come out when it's done.
Remote podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Live.
Yeah, we've done that before.
No,
we actually
we're not
did
doing
it. We did a remote podcast at Jeremiah Johnson Brewing Company, like in the can storage area.
Okay.
It was so hot. It was so hot. We had to drink beer just to get through the episode. And it's not like anything happened. It was pure water because you're so hot. You're just sweating it all out. I'm like, this is
sounds pleasant.
awesome. Yeah, it was a great time. I know you're looking forward to something like that.
Yes.
So, folks, be ready to get progress updates
Yes.
on single malt from the ground into your belly as a fluid. I'm pretty excited about this.
Yes.
And you can find interesting partnerships throughout our breweries within the Great Falls area and beyond that are really unique. And so take the time to visit about what is actually happening with these breweries within our area because it's not same old people.
And
It's
we're not
unique
making it
stuff.
up when we say it's some of the best in the world here.
Absolutely.
True story. So thanks, Ryan. And until we see you, listeners, happy,
With your
healthy,
Hand full of mugs of beer.
until we see you full of mugs of beer and your happy faces here in Great Falls, we hope you are creating amazing memories with your friends and family wherever you might be. See you soon.
We're No Dam Experts is the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing damn town.